and promises of life going back to normal in the UK.
Yeah, is it? We're live now. Good morning. Hello, I'm John from
Good morning,
Broadsheet.
John. How are you?
Good morning, David, and good morning to the viewers. You're watching Tomorrow Tonight, which is today, this morning, because allowing, I think, charitably enough, David, even on a Friday night, likes an early night. Am I right?
Well, yes. It's very nice of you to facilitate me, but I also had a pretty busy day yesterday.
Of course, yeah. David is a human rights lawyer and a columnist for both ourselves and Cassandra Voices. You have two columns in this week, one on the site and one in Cassandra Voices, which is an excellent website publication, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's run by our mutual friend, Frank Armstrong, who is a former student of mine, and I really think it's worthy of support. If I could just briefly say something about it, since you brought it up. Yeah. He's been running this on a basically charitable basis for a couple of years. A lot of friends of his, including me. He's a former student of mine. I'd actually jurisprudence and constitutional law in the King's Inns. I got to know him for many years. But it's a tremendous thing he's doing. But he has no money. And historically, Ireland did have things like the crane bag and the metal bag. And he is providing a vector for proper public intellectualism in the country, and people should just, if they have any sense of self-respect, dish into their pockets and give them a few quid every month. I mean, I certainly did, because given the dearth of critical thinking in the popular media and the established newspapers in Ireland, he is at the very least providing a fora for a diversity of critical intelligences who are otherwise being shut out.
Yeah, and not available in the mainstream.
No, because the mainstream has got, in Ireland in particular, not so in Britain as much yet, although getting there, but the mainstream vectors of communication in Ireland have become bland at best. I kind of exempt the Examiner newspaper to a point. I'll explain why I think that is the case. Bland at best, concealing and not reporting the truth, and presenting the official.
Yeah. And tell me why you wouldn't include the Examiner in that. Oh. Lost you.
You're back on?
Yeah, you're back on, yeah.
I just think, sorry, you asked about the Examiner. I just think, you know, in the kingdom of the blind man, the one-eyed man is king. I don't want to give a promotion for the Cork Examiner, but I just think there's a sharper, more acute Cork quality in it, which is representative, and sometimes it will print things that other people won't. Yeah. And of course, Michael Smith's The Village magazine is the only really critical current affairs magazine in Ireland. But Michael also seems to have either difficulties in funding, and he appears intermittently. So I write a column for that as well, when and ever it comes out. Yeah. And of course, it only comes out spasmodically, and I'm not being disrespectful of Michael. That's not a good idea that the only current affairs magazine in the country comes out whenever Michael can raise the funds to put it out.
Yeah, well, they had a big hit with the with Leo the Leak story. I mean, it's
yes.
I mean, it's like, sorry.
I know quite a lot about the ins and outs of that.
Yeah. Well, I just mean, it's like what Vincent Brown used to say about McGill. It only needed, a bit like the IRA, it only needed one spectacular a year or something to keep it going. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the...
Yeah, no, I know that. But at the same time, it will be very interesting to see. I predict Mr. Varadkar will not be prosecuted. After all, he has been investigated by the people he has power over and knows. We've got to the point in independent journalism in Ireland looking at it from a vantage point, that Michael Smith is taking a very brave risk taking on someone like Varadkar. Because I think Varadkar is a different species of politician that Ireland has not seen, really. We are talking about, a kind of fascist, neo-crypto-fascist strongman, kind of Mussolini light, with perhaps, an element of his name rift from Varadkar to Varuka. He is a tough human, a deeply right-wing human being. I think Nora Owen famously said, didn't she, when she met him when she was a student, she couldn't believe how right-wing he was within the traditional element of Fine Gael.
Yeah.
And Michael is,
and she was pretty right-wing. I mean, to be fair.
Well, I think that this is the point. The Fine Gael have moved to they're way beyond hard right at this stage. The Christian Democrat notion, represented by Declan Costello, Gareth Fitzgerald to a point, George Birmingham, people of that ilk and generation, has gone completely. And now it is a kind of corporate, hard-right neoliberal party. And Varadkar is representative of the sort of trends that exist in other European countries. So I think Michael is doing something very, very courageous. And you're based in Barcelona. I'm a practicing barrister in Dublin, or in London rather.
Yeah.
Michael is there in the coalface in Dublin, in his small little premises.
Right.
And these are perilous times. So I think he is, for all of Michael's faults, he's been remarkably courageous.
Oh yeah. I mean, just even keeping the thing going, same with and Cassandra Voices.
But the point is, you can't really have a vanity project, a proprietorial project, without consistency and funding. Frank, at least, is doing this and keeping it going. Loads of stuff coming out. But of course, he's working through a website structure.
Yeah.
And as long as people donate free public works, it can sustain itself to a point. But of course, I'm not going to divulge Frank Armstrong's age or anything. But,
no. Yeah.
But it's important that, plead to excuses to your readership. It's important that he gets a viable commercial, sustainable structure out of it. As far as Michael is concerned, Michael has, of course, business interests, and that funds it. But the difficulty is the Village magazine, in order to be Maximus in terms of effect.
David, your microphone.
It has to be a monthly publication, the Village magazine. If it is not coming out on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, so people can, in a sense, regulate their routines and purchase of it, in hard copy and on the internet, then its effect is lost and dissipated, and it is perceived to be, whether correctly or not, a kind of vanity indulgence, where he brings it out occasionally. That is not going to gain the requisite degree of traction. But it is, isn't it, the overall phenomenon that the tradition of journalism, of investigative journalism, represented by such people, I suppose Pilger would be the last of them left, of Pilger, Hitchens, Harold Evans, who died recently, Ludwig Kennedy, Paul Fush, perhaps above all else. That tradition had a financial marginal sustainability about it historically, even in Ireland, but it doesn't have so now.
No, it's the most expensive type of journalism, really, but also
yes, and there is also a sense that, I've written now, I think I'm in about number 16 or 15 of public intellectual series of Cassandra Voices. I've written other things, but I've been looking at mentioned the one in Hannah Arendt that's just come out. And it's remarkable that if you go back in time to the 1940s and 1950s, someone who was a defined public intellectual like Hannah Arendt, or for example Albert Camus, who are both mentioned in the piece. I've written separately several things on him, and one or two more I'd like to write. They were central to the culture. They were massively, public figures, as well as, and the definition of a public intellectual is someone who is not in their garret. They're engaging, what can we call engagement. But the public intellectual in Ireland doesn't really exist anymore. Conor Cruise O'Brien may have been the last of them. Some say Richard Carney, perhaps, I don't know. But even so, or Tony Clare, but they were more marginal. Conor Cruise O'Brien was more of a non-specialist. But that tradition in Ireland is completely, utterly gone. But it is not just a phenomenon in Ireland. It is the disempowerment of the critical intelligence and the disempowerment of the public intellectual, which several of the pieces I've written recently have touched on, including the Hannah Arendt thing for Cassandra Voices, and the thing I wrote for Weiss. That deals with it, I think.
Okay, well, let's have a look at that after we have a look at the papers, shall we?
Yeah.
David, are you familiar with the story at St. Jared's and the Beacon Hospital?
Yes, I mean, I think they're saying that there was an element of perhaps nepotism, or an element of its surplus vaccines given to people in an unauthorized, unofficial way. So isn't that basically it?
But the CEO, Michael Cullen, his children go to the school.
Well, that's the nepotism point I was referring to.
Oh, sorry, yeah. And I'm not sure what they would.
I mean, we're a culture of strokes and backhanders. You can just see him banging on the door of the Beacon Clinic. Of course, illegal in the present climate, what they have done. That's the simple fact of the matter.
Say that again?
It's illegal what they've done in the present climate, I think.
Yeah.
Giving out surplus things in an unauthorized way.
Right. Do you believe somebody should be arrested for this?
I mean, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, let's get things in proportion perspective. But I certainly believe that they should be subject to censorship and a degree, or censure, and a degree of public scrutiny. If they are, and the Beacon Clinic is not exactly a public health service, it's a private public thing, private care.
Yeah, it's a fully private hospital.
It is always a worrying feature. But all private entities, hospitals, they work on a for-profit basis. That's the danger.
Yeah. Did you say for-profit basis? Yes. David?
Yeah. And so I can see why the nation is fuming. Is that what it says there? The nation.
David, there's something happening. You're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, I know that. Let me just try and adjust that.
Okay. That's much better. Can you hear me? No, the mic's gone now, David.
Oh,
gotta get up. You gotta get up very early to deal with these technical things.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can. Perfect. Yeah. That's
okay,
great.
Good. Yeah.
So he rang school to offer a job. He personally called the school to offer them the leftover vaccines. I don't really know what more to be said for it. I mean, they have to get a second dose as well, which is funny.
Sorry?
They'll have to get
You're breaking up a little bit.
They'll have to get preferential treatment for a second dose now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, God.
They're in a... Anyway,
it's acceptable conduct. I mean, maybe they were frog marched into it by,
frog marched into it by whom?
By the person who phoned them up and sought it from them.
Oh no! The head of the Beacon, whose children went to St. Jared's, he phoned St. Jared's and said, "Look, we've got some leftovers here of the vaccine." Yeah,
less culpable, but still unsafe.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, whatever. I mean, but it's. I suppose there's going to be a lot of that around, isn't there?
Well, I'd imagine so. That's how the black market works in disaster times.
And this person writes, "My mother is a patient in that hospital and is not vaccinated." her mother is a patient
Right.
in the Beacon.
Well, that shows the disparity in terms of treatment rather well.
Well, yeah, maybe they weren't left over. That's the.
Well, why didn't she get one?
That's what I mean. Yeah. So the plot thickens, or thickens plot, or the clots thicken. Large volumes of AstraZeneca due soon as ministers seek clarity on restrictions. Are you?
Yeah, hooray!
Okay.
You know, I
Bank
mean,
of Ireland.
you know,
Bank of
this is
Ireland.
a strange universe.
Bank of Ireland paid 3 executives over 1 million. I wouldn't have thought that would be.
Yes, yeah. I mean, look, bankers' pay is a disgrace, given that they bled the country dry and turned into an investment model where they sold and misrepresent everything left, right, and centre, and have no loyalty. I mean, you know, I represented the Danske Bank case several years ago in Dublin. And of course, they left the country. Ulster Bank are now. And now Bank of Ireland, I don't think can leave the country. It's screw the people in the country, which they've been doing by frauds, misrepresentations, reneging on agreements, reneging on trackers, reneging on variable interest rate repayments, and then paying their executives 1 million. Yes, super.
Well, the other aspect of the Beacon is that the amount of money they're getting paid in this sort of public-private thing since COVID has started is just phenomenal amount of money. So they're making hay, really, aren't they? They're getting vaxes for their children's teachers, and anyway. Can you hear me, David? Are you okay?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, I'm just rambling. Still no date for most of us to get COVID vaccines.
Yeah. You're in danger of being vaccinated out.
Right. Okay. You are allowed comment on these
Sorry?
things. You're allowed
Well,
as we're going through.
Well, I mean, I just think perhaps people should focus on other aspects of things as opposed to the implementation of the vaccine. Isn't it extraordinary that Ireland is obsessed with the vaccine exclusively as we scroll through all of these papers? Whereas it is the effect of the virus on people's lives that we should be focusing on, not exclusively the vaccine. I mean, if you look at the papers today, there are now suggestions in Ireland about, well, first of all, quite apart from vaccine passports and limitations on travel, I predict that foreign travel for many people may be an impossibility for years to come, and or the people who would be allowed travel would be allowed travel.
Mike, David, your mic.
Consular business type people would be allowed only travel for very specific reasons. One suggests that travel will be subject to all levels of checks. Vaccine passports will contain all of this is, in short, in totality, the implementation of measures of control over people's movements. And certainly it seems to me, without being outlandish about it, there is a sense that they want to know, state authorities want to know why people are coming into the country, for what reasons. We're almost going to get, even if people are allowed travel, they won't be traveling for any extended period or any, you know, there won't be world travelers like Patrick Leigh Farmer or Bruce Chatwin. The borders will be much more controlled because individual countries will not want people there except for designated periods for package type arrangements. And their data will be monitored.
Yeah.
And these are all very disturbing trends in terms of the exchange of knowledge and cultural traditions and so on.
Yeah, and also the free movement is the big EU selling point, really, the free movement of people within Europe.
Well, I mean, it was the 4 pillars, you know, and free movement of persons was one of them. And even, you know, the Brits always went along with that. They had no difficulty with the notion of the liberalisation of borders in that sense. But I'm not so sure free movement, which is also, of course, a right under the European Convention on Human Rights, is an extension of the right to liberty. is going to be a thing of the future for many people. It's most worrying indeed.
Just
And
going
you see this thing about the teacher seeks department review after dossier expose.
yes,
That seems to me also another worrying emanation of people taking their eyes off what are more, in many respects, more important issues.
okay. Can I just explain what the issue is, or will you explain?
Yeah.
Will you
Well,
explain
the issue, as I understand it, is that the Department of Health has been sharing information on autistic children to other departments. Now, this is something I've been, not this specific issue, but it's something I've written extensively about, which is the sharing of information between the police and the health authorities, particularly the toxic relationship between the police and Tulsa, which blew up in the McCabe thing, and all sorts of other things. The relationship between police officers and social workers in a coordinated way to go after people is a disgraceful feature of Irish life. And they share information, they coordinate, they collude, almost like a criminal conspiracy, where in fact, a criminal conspiracy when they want to go after people.
Although Charlton said that wasn't the case, but go on.
Well, he wouldn't he? As Mandy Rice Davis famously said. Which may be a reflection of my relationship with Peter Charlton in all sort of way. But if we go back to this particular story, why are they trying to share information about people suffering from autism? It's a disgrace. What's the bait?
It was to prepare for their legal case, to prepare for any legal action against the state. They would.
But isn't that similar in a way?
Oh, it's desperate. It's desperate. No. But they would check things like the parents drinking, and I mean, really intimate stuff about their lives to defend any
absolve
action.
Themselves of the responsibility.
Yeah.
It's almost like, and here's a cutting point. It is a version of the phenomenon that has affected the Irish state, where they won't pay for the Magdalen laundries either.
Yeah.
They're using the statute of limitation argument of that, and they're building a case against other people for their own criminality.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think those of us who have not been, to use George Orwell's expression, inside the web, who've had on-the-ground experience now and realise what a criminal entity the Irish state is, particularly in its collusion with the HSE and Tulsa.
Yeah, it's frightening. I mean, there was another copy and paste.
It's truly frightening. It is truly frightening. There are no checks and balances. And of course, the exchange of information is something. Sorry, the exchange of information is something we dealt with last week as well.
Yeah.
Which was a point that you made to me in relation to the Proceeds of Crime Act and the Gilligan case, because that involved also. There is no respect for boundaries in Ireland. What in corporate law firms and things are called Chinese walls. This is your segment, that is your segment, that is your segment. All information comes cross-pollinated and cross-transferred. And multi-agency responses are very, very dangerous things because they're often politically motivated for the purpose of destroying someone. And anyone can be destroyed if they have all your data. They're sharing all your information. They know everything about your personal habits.
Completely. And
it's disgraceful.
Well, of all the things that we get sent into broadsheet. Most of the, in terms of people looking for their stories to be told, it would involve this area of Irish life that they've just been, turned over by the Department of Health, Tulsa, or whatever. They can't believe the Kafka nightmare that they're in, and they come to us.
No. I mean, no. Having been there myself and seen it, and regularly people solicit me for pro bono advice once they've entered the Kafkaesque kind of universe of the Irish state. I mean, it is almost the Irish state and the health authorities are not unlike the health and state authorities depicted in Stieg Larsson's trilogy, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and The Girl Who Played with Fire.
Right.
They are which deals with the Swedish socialistic.
Yeah. Not familiar with the books.
Well, they're very famous award-winning.
Yeah, no, I know the works, but I don't know.
I mean,
read them.
the Irish state is effectively through the structures of the Department of Justice and Health, and I hate to use this expression, but it is. It's like a common term or a Stasi-like state.
Yeah. Well, this is
and people who have no interaction with it never see that until they have interaction. There are all sorts of other ways. Once a case gets to a court, the judge goes, "You don't have to disclose that information. I'm not going to inspect that document." The state barristers provide a cloud of secrecy around you to frustrate your case in court if you ever get to a court, or they break you up in standing or delay criteria or narrowing of issues. And,
And the minister of the day tends to go very...
For a long time, as far as the legal compass, yeah?
And the ministers of the day tend to go native immediately. I mean, they tend to be in opposition against trying to find out for their constituents. And as soon as they get into the Department of Health, it's like they join.
Well, I think the Department of Justice is worse, actually, but or they're equally as bad.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is. People do go native. It's very difficult if you look at Irish political history. I mean, I suppose Noel Brown was someone who didn't go native, but that's a peculiar set of circumstances. Historically, many years ago.
More to do with his personality as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot to do with his person. Whether you agree or disagree with the whole issue is irrelevant to the fact that here was a minister who was acting in an independent capacity. You don't see many people like Michael Heseltine, famously in Thatcher's cabinet. He walked out because of the Western affair, sod off, and walked out the door. They cling on desperately in their yes boss way, and they don't walk out, and they're full of fabulous intentions, and then they get into power and they get knee deep in it.
Yeah, I think it helped. Heseltine was a multimillionaire publisher as well, so
no, but he also built himself up from nothing.
But I mean,
and his hot temper was always there. I'm a winner of the International Observer Mace competition. One of the first things I found out about Heseltine. He grabbed it. Or I think it might have been the Oxford Mace or the Observer Mace, but he grabbed it and he started wielding it around when he was
I think it was the House of Commons Mace, wasn't it?
Was it the House of Commons Mace? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, certainly he did that. He's so he has obviously a short temper. But,
did you do that?
Too many of those. Sorry.
Did you grab the mace during the Observer Mace debates when you were in there?
We were given it, and so we got a trade journey back from Aberystwyth when we won it. Myself, my partner Alan McLean, and we were on this train journey hours back to London with this incredible thing. We're just worried about losing it in insurance, and I suggested when we got to Ebbw which is on Erin Bevan. And there's a statue of him above, and then we go up. And no, don't do that. I mean, how are we going to grab this up and we'd lose it? So we safe deposited back in the Gray's Inns. We got over there, but I mean, it's a lovely thing. But it's like you just touch it, and that's it. You don't see it again.
Good. The Irish field. You're not. I know you're not a racing man, but this is our last chance.
I'm not. I mean. Of your readership that I'm not a horsey person. I'm afraid I know a lot of people who like the horse. It's not. I mean, I like horses. I mean, I like looking at them.
Yeah.
But,
okay,
I've never been.
You can't comment on the racing news of the week anyway. So
point to point, no, not really.
This is very sad news for you, David. I know you're a Coronation Street fan, aren't you? You told me that.
I of all the soap operas, it's the one I have the softest spot for, but I don't watch television anymore. But I do know who he is.
Poor Ken is.
Wonders why he is. He must be very old now. He's touching 90 or something.
Yeah, he's 89. He's 89. He looks pretty well for it, doesn't he?
Sorry?
He looks pretty well. I mean, I think he's been married on the street about 12 times or something.
Sorry?
I said I think he's been married on the street.
Yeah, well, he's been on the program forever. Hello, you were breaking up there for a second. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. No, I can't. I can try something else. Hold on, I'll try this. I can't hear you. Hold on. No. Hello? Hold on. Right, let's try this. I'm trying to get in through the phone. See if it works. Hello, can you hear me now? Okay. Yes or no? Host muted you. Unmute. John, can you hear me? Do you want to stop it? And we start again with you link. Yeah.